You do not lose your decisions in the moment you act. You lose them seconds earlier. There is an almost invisible interval between stimulus and awareness. That is where your life often begins to tilt.
You decide to speak with conviction, but when the moment comes, your voice comes out smaller. You decide to set a boundary, but at the decisive moment, you pull back. You decide to create, move forward, say no, and then your body shifts state before you even notice. Your jaw tightens, your chest closes, your breath rises, your focus narrows. By the time the mind realizes what is happening, the choice has already started to slip away.
A lot of people call this weakness, insecurity, self-sabotage. But in many cases, the problem is not a lack of clarity, it is speed. There is an inner state that moves faster than thought, and if you do not recognize the moment it takes over, you keep trying to solve with the mind a problem that begins in the body. In this video, you are going to see where that shift happens, how to recognize the signature of that state, and how to intervene before the automatic response takes over. Because when that interval is no longer unconscious, something essential comes back into reach: choice.
The body is always the first to know. Before your inner narrative begins, before the explanation, before the reasoning, the organism has already read something in the environment and has already started to respond. To understand this clearly, use a simple map. There is the biological body, the body that breathes, contracts, hardens, trembles, expands, or shuts down. There is the mind body, the part that interprets, organizes, explains, and tries to make sense of what happened. And there is what, in this video, I will call the third body. Not as doctrine, but as a practical way of naming an automatic defensive state that can take the lead before conscious will is fully present. This is the state that makes you know exactly what you want to say and still feel the words die in your throat. Not because you are weak, but because in that moment, the body got there first. Defensive circuits can activate before conscious processing is complete. The nervous system reorganizes perception and behavior in milliseconds. The central point is simple. Not every reaction begins in the part of you that thinks in words. Many begin in the state of the body. And that is why so many people understand their patterns and still keep repeating them. You want to speak, and you freeze. You want to set a boundary, and you pull back. You want to act, and you stall. You want to say no, and you give in. It is not that you do not know. Very often, you know exactly what you want to do. What happens is that an old state arrives first. One woman lived this way for years. Her name is Melissa. Melissa has worked for 19 years at a public library in Portland. Her life looks stable, organized routine, quiet environment. Everything appears to be in order. But there is a pattern that repeats in her with almost cruel precision. In staff meetings, her voice comes out smaller, her chest pulls in, and the sentence disappears before it can be spoken. During calls with her sister, her abdomen tightens before the first difficult sentence is even spoken. When her ex-husband calls, her jaw locks the instant his name appears on the screen. The decision that felt solid just minutes earlier begins to dissolve, and by the time she notices, she is already giving in. Then comes the weight in her chest, the feeling that she left herself at the exact moment she most needed to stay present. Melissa tried to solve this through understanding. She went to therapy. She had real insight. But there was one point that remained untouched. Her body changed first. The change began on a rainy day. During lunch, Melissa came across an audiobook about trauma and the nervous system. She sat in her car, put on her headphones, and listened to the first few minutes. The narrator was describing exactly what she had never known how to name: the interval between stimulus and response, the jaw that locks, the diaphragm that lifts, the chest that hardens before speech. Melissa felt a tightening in her solar plexus. It was not just intellectual agreement, it was recognition. The following Friday, her phone rang with her ex-husband's name on the screen, and the sequence began exactly as it always had. Jaw tightening, breath shortening, chest hardening. But before answering, Melissa did something different. She placed her hand at the center of her chest. She let the air out slowly, and for a few seconds, she did not react to the name on the screen. She observed her body. And in that moment, an opening appeared. Not a grand revelation, not a miracle, an opening. But that opening changed everything. Because for the first time, Melissa realized that the urgency to give in was not coming from the request, it was coming from the state. And when she saw that, something became clear. The choice was not fully made yet. It only felt fully made because for years, the old reflex had always arrived first. Now I want to bring that opening to you.
If it feels comfortable, close your eyes for a moment and recall a recent situation in which you knew exactly what you wanted to do and still did something else. A boundary you did not set, a word that got stuck, an action that stalled. Do not go into the story. Just let the situation appear.
Now bring your attention to 3 regions of the body: jaw, diaphragm, lower abdomen. Notice which of these areas responds first, which one tightens, which one closes, which one contracts before the others. This point matters because very often this is where the old state first ignites. Now notice what comes with that activation. Did your breath shorten? Did your chest lose space? Did your shoulders rise? Did your vision narrow? Did an inner urgency appear? Do not change anything yet. The first step is not control, it is seeing.
Now, lengthen the exhale. Inhale through the nose to a count of 4 without forcing it. Then exhale through the mouth to a count of 8, slowly. Repeat that 2 more times. The goal is not to erase the emotion. It is to offer the nervous system a new signal. Right now, in this moment, there is no immediate threat requiring an automatic response. Return to the area that activated first. What changed? Maybe very little. Maybe almost nothing. Even very small changes matter, because this is how the body learns, through felt difference. Now, place one hand at the center of your chest and the other just below your navel. Let the weight of your hands create contour, presence, orientation, and make a micro choice. Shift your posture slightly. Turn your head. Open and close your hand. A simple movement, but deliberate. This detail teaches the nervous system a new sequence: perception, regulation, presence, chosen action. Before, the path was trigger and automatic reaction. Now, a different pathway begins to exist. This is exactly what Melissa found. When she paused before answering, she realized that the urgency to give in was not coming from the request, it was coming from the state. In those few seconds, the choice was not fully made yet.
Melissa answered. She heard the request, and she said no. No spectacle, no forced hardness, just no. It was not a miracle, it was a sustained opening. In the weeks that followed, the changes were not dramatic, they were cumulative. But her boundaries began to make it through her throat, and the automatic response started to lose ground.
To carry that presence with you anywhere, there is a simple signal gesture. Gently press the tip of your thumb against the side of your index finger for 5 seconds while you slowly let the air out. Associate that touch with the sense of contour and presence you cultivated during the protocol. This gesture is discreet enough to use in a meeting or the instant the phone rings. When you notice the first signs that the shift is about to happen, use the signal gesture, lengthen the exhale, and repeat inwardly, "I recognize the interval, and I choose from the present."
What you practiced here is the interval protocol in its essential form. Notice where the old state ignites, lengthen the exhale, bring anchoring back to the body, and sustain a small, deliberate action. Not to erase the past, but to increase the chances that your presence arrives in time. Because what once looked like weak will was often just a bodily state stepping in too fast. And when you learn to see that early, you stop confusing yourself entirely with the reaction. You begin to arrive first. Viktor Frankl wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response." What truly transforms a life is entering that space with the body. That is where the automatic loses its sovereignty and choice finds solid ground again. If this resonated with you, leave a like and subscribe, and write this in the comments: "I recognize the interval and I choose from the present." Because once what was invisible becomes recognizable, repetition no longer rules alone.